The music you listen to says a lot about who you are. In this podcast, we discuss how that music may shape your life. We talk to normal people with a love for music and people that are in the music industry in one form or another. My name is Craig Seibert, and we want to know your music story. Welcome to Music Musing. Okay, welcome back to Music Musing. I have a part 1 of 2 today, which is going to be very interesting. You'll see once I get started here. I have Nicole Cekov on the line.
That's it.
So how do I say this? Where I work, her father is one of our sort of clients. And we got to talking one day while we were waiting for an event to start. And he said he loved my microphone. My microphone sounded really good. And I said, well, yeah, it's because I do a podcast. Oh, what kind of podcast do you do? One on music musing. And he's like, oh, that sounds really exciting. I know this guy from this band and, I do all this stuff. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but I do all this stuff. And then my daughter wanted to do all this stuff and she's been doing all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, it'd be really great to get both perspectives of where you came into music and then see how that ties into him, which he was the one that got you into that music.
That's it.
So thank you for coming on and talking to me about what music is in your life.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to do this.
Okay. So normally when I start this off with the beginning. I start off with how did you start? What did you get? What got you into music? Do you play an instrument? Do people see it? I'm actually going to start more towards the end for yours.
Okay.
And you'll see why here in a second. So what music do you listen to now? And not, we're going to discuss that other part here in a second where you guys are featured on something. But what kind of music do you personally listen to right now?
It's so hard. You can't really put it in a category. I'm a little all over the place. It depends on my mood, really. Obviously, I still I'm very much influenced by the Grateful Dead, which is what we're kind of going to get into, based on my upbringing and my father. And I listen to that all the time. I go to live bands all the time. Anything that has any sort of inkling of the Dead, I'm into it. But saying that, I do have a record player and I love to collect old albums. So I recently got into Roy Ayers, old 70s style, kind of funk, groovy, that kind of thing. Leon Bridges has been a newer, music. Obviously he's been around for a few years, but I just started to listen to Leon Bridges a little bit more. When I'm listening to the radio, it's classic rock, just day in, day out. Let's see, CCR if I'm listening to Pandora or Fleetwood Mac. So I'm a youngish human nowadays, but I have an old soul when it comes to music.
It's interesting you say that because my son actually said those exact words today. What were we talking about? We were talking about something with old music, and he listens to this. CCR is one of his favorite. He's been listening to the Vietnam era songs. So sure. CCR and War and stuff has been pretty big with his rotation right now.
So much
but he says
soul.
That too. Yeah, exactly.
A lot of passion.
He's 14 though.
Oh, wow. He's a baby.
But he listens to Metallica and Megadeth too, only because that's, kind of where I kind of came from as well. And AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and all the kind of classics and stuff like that. But I think that's interesting that you point that out because, records were a big thing back then and they've kind of come back in resurgence now, but you see a lot more people really purchasing the newer stuff. But the fact that you look for the older stuff is really cool. I enjoy that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, when I listen to the radio, I turn on the dial when I'm in the car and I listen to old school radio. Not many people listen to radio. It's a dying, MTV killed the radio star. But I started my career in radio at 18 years old. So I have a little history. And so my heart and soul's in music and in radio. And so I love listening to classic rock. And whenever I hear something new or exciting or something that just kind of gives me a little I take note of it, and next time I go to the record store, it's, you're hunting through all the records, and it's it's a pastime. It's something fun. It's a hobby, and it's fun to bring it home and crack the vinyl, and it's a good time.
So I'm kind of going off track, but I still want to
Sure.
ask, are there any new rock bands out that you're listening to on a regular basis, or that have kind of caught you off guard and you went, "Hey, I really like this band"?
Honestly, no, not
Huh?
really.
Oh, that's fine. It's
Yeah,
totally fine. I have a hard time getting myself into it as well.
yeah.
I think your dad knows the drummer for something Sons. Why am I blanking on the name now? Uh,
Oh,
yeah, they were in my playlist a second ago. I was trying to see if I could figure out.
yeah. I know
I,
exactly who you're talking about, but I can't. I'm the worst with names. But I
I
do know. Mm-hmm.
it's bad because I've got Fortunate Son stuck in my head right now. Now I can't remember what it is. The
Yeah.
name of it is. Um, anyways, they're a newer band, and
Uh-huh.
I have a hard time getting into that because I feel like what's been written before is rock, and it's really hard to repeat that nowadays. There's not very many bands out there that want to do that,
Yeah.
and I do listen to that older stuff because of that, because I really like that four on the floor, solid drum beat, guitar, riff, rock. And I like going back to that. There's very few bands out there that are doing that. So,
Mm-hmm.
well, let's do that. Let's go back. Let's go back to where you mentioned you did radio at 18. I can't wait to hear that part. But
Okay.
let's go back to the beginning. One of the questions I like asking is, what's the first memory you have of music being played either with you or for you?
Mm-hmm. So, when we have heard a story so many times in our life about when we were a kid, you get confused as this if this was actually a true memory, or if my dad just tells me
Yeah.
and all my friends and family this story every time we meet somebody new. This one time we were at the show, so it's hard to say if this is a memory, or just, or maybe that the story has kept the memory alive. In either
Yeah.
way, fair enough. More power to it. It's a beautiful memory. So, um, my first memory, I would say, would be when this wasn't my first Grateful Dead show. That I was 2 years old, but it was probably
Wow.
maybe a year or two later. So maybe 3 or 4 years old. We were at a Grateful Dead show with Jerry Garcia. We were
Ah.
pretty, probably midway, from stage to the back of the, outdoor amphitheater. I don't recall the venue. My dad will be able to tell you, but, of course. But so we're about midway, set break happens, you take a breather, sit down, get a snack, and the guys come back up on stage and they're tuning their guitars, little, do little hints at maybe what's going to be next, right? And my dad goes, Nicole, what song do you want to hear? And I said, well, China Cat Sunflower. And he was like, okay, China Cat Sunflower. He goes, tell the guys that you want to hear China Cat Sunflower. So I yelled, China Cat Sunflower, my little 3, 4 year old voice, just, through the thousands of people around me. Nothing happened. And he's like, I don't think it was loud enough. Try it again. China Cat Sunflower, really gave it my all. And no joke, just like within moments, boom, the band right into
That's
China Cat
awesome.
Sunflower.
Wow.
And, again, I don't know if this is a true memory or if I've just heard the story 1,000 times, but that would definitely, it still gives me goosebumps to this day. And my dad and I love sharing that, brings tears to my eyes almost just to think about it.
So obviously, we're kind of starting to move towards that discussion of, your dad was a big follower of the Dead, and it seems like you've kind of
Sure.
taken that on as well.
Oh, yeah.
Um, that is a great story. That is awesome, and I loved. That's what makes people both get into a specific music like the Dead,
Hmm.
and get into music in general, and to
Yes.
enjoy something like that.
Yeah.
And so, I just an estimate, how many times do you think he took you to a show before you went to by yourself, or have you went by yourself?
It was only a couple years ago that I finally went to a show by myself.
Okay.
Obviously Jerry has passed now, so this
Yeah.
was this was Phil and friends, Phil Lesh with his
Yep.
son and a couple other people. that I finally went by myself. So yeah, after all these years, I'm in my 30s now, so I finally went to a show by myself. But uh, we probably, so Grateful Dead specifically with Jerry alive, I was 7 years old when Jerry passed. I
Yeah.
probably only went to a handful, maybe 5 shows,
Okay.
with Jerry. We
Yeah.
of course went to a couple things here and there after that, and my dad and I have been to lots of other, cover bands here and there, or
Yeah.
other shows together. We've even seen Taylor Swift together. So I mean, there's nothing that we won't do.
That's
But
awesome.
but yeah, Grateful Dead before, yeah, probably only five or six shows that we saw together before Jerry passed, and then there was definitely a stall in the music scene for us for a while.
But it sounds like you guys go to a lot of concerts.
We
So
do. Well, now especially, again, I would
yeah.
say back in 2010 is when we picked things up again. And really, so, through my high school years, I was a grouchy little teenage girl. My dad and I were not the best of friends like we are today. And
Yeah.
I was listening to Green Day and Avril Lavigne and Eminem and, just kind of whatever was the hit at the time. And I needed my own identity, and I pushed a little bit away from, that whole music scene that I had grown up in and was influenced by my father. But back in 2010, so I graduated high school in 2006, and then 2010, I was 22 years old, and we went to the Further Festival. Now, Further is a kind of reincarnation of the Grateful Dead. It had Bob Weir and Phil
Oh yeah.
Lesh and a couple other members with some new members, and so it was just kind of like the next, becoming of the Dead, if you will. And so we went to a Further Festival together, and that was kind of my aha moment as an adult. And since then, we've been to hundreds of shows together, Grateful Dead and other. We've traveled across the country. We went to Chicago for the Fare Thee Well shows. We've done a lot.
So
So
how does that? So I'm semi admitting that I don't understand the whole Dead thing, which is why I
sure,
love having
fair
you
enough.
two guys on because I want to
Yeah,
hear it.
yeah. It's a
I've
whole
listened to their
world in its
music.
own.
Yeah, it is. But I've listened to their music, and I'm a sucker for singer songwriter stuff, anyways. So a
Hmm.
lot of those songs that tell stories, like Requiem of Edmund Fitzgerald, some of their is it Casey? What's Casey Jones? Is that the one that there's a big hit? That's a
Yes,
like a
yeah.
story.
Driving that train.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I just those type of songs I really get sucked in on, and I can
yeah,
put the headphones on and lay down and just listen to and just let them run. But
definitely.
the traveling across country and the going to multiple different shows.
Hmm.
The first question that comes to mind is did you ever do one where or more, where they were back to back, where you saw them in one city and the next time they actually played out, you were there at the next concert?
My dad did a lot of that
Okay.
when I was younger,
Yeah.
we haven't I haven't personally done the tour thing per se.
Okay.
So they call that, going on
Yeah.
tour, right? Be jumping on the bus. You're gone for 6 months out of the year. That for me, that just hasn't ever worked out in my with my lifestyle. So I usually try and stick with the ones that are local, or I'll pick, a couple shows here and there. But a lot of these bands, whether it's Further or Dead and Company is like the new, incarnation.
Hmm.
um sometimes, so in this October or coming up in a few months, they're going to be playing 3 nights at the Hollywood Bowl. Well, we have tickets to all 3 nights. So we're not necessarily city hopping, but we're going to
Yeah.
go to 3 nights of the
It's
same
crazy.
band at the same venue, and guaranteed the show is not going to be the same every night. It's going to be
Yeah.
different. We won't hear the same song twice. And that's what's really cool about it.
They've got a big enough library too to kind
They
of to
do.
pull that off as well. So I mean
They do,
that helps that
Wesley.
whole situation a lot.
Right.
Well, but that makes it a little more appealing when you're thinking about somebody who has such a large library of going
Hmm.
to multiple nights because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not going to hear the same songs over and over again. Um,
Absolutely.
Okay, so you give me earliest memory. You told me that you kind of followed them up until he passed away, and then you had a gap there. But
Mhm.
are there any memories you had from? I mean, again, music seems to be ingrained in who you are. Are
Yeah.
there any memories of people like family members or friends who played an instrument that you had like an experience with them with that time or with an instrument?
Um, so
I mean, no
my
is a good answer. We can move to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say. My great grandfather was beautiful pianist, and
Oh,
so
wow.
I also grew up with classical music. As a big influence in my growing up. I spent a lot of time at my great grandparents' house growing up. Um, for me, my dad, I've never seen him play an instrument. And myself, I've tried. I've always thought it would be so cool, and my great grandfather taught me a couple keys on the piano
Uh-huh.
or whatever. But for me, it was always the enjoyment, the kind of being on the other side.
Yeah.
Musically, like, I'm not musically talented. I could never pick up a guitar and just like throw something together or anything. It's just like my fingers and my brain, they don't speak to each other. But when it comes to dancing and boogieing and and meeting cool people that are
Yeah.
like-minded and have a good heart, that's for me, that's what the music's all about.
Yeah. So I think, and again, there's not totally nothing wrong with not having the musical talent side of things, and
Right.
definitely a lot with having the appreciation of it. And so that brings up a good question. This is going to be off the cuff. I didn't actually write this one down. Do you prefer live music over recorded?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So
Absolutely.
when you're sitting and listening to music with your headphones on at home or in the room, if you listen to a live album, is it the same thing?
No, of course it's not the
Well,
same thing, but it's got the energy.
okay.
I think there's nothing wrong with recorded music. I think
Yeah.
that being there for the live show, it's hearing the vibrations from the stage and the energy from the people next to you. I think it's an organism, right? It's just like
Yeah.
this one, everybody is part of this like creature that is, it just kind of goes through your body and just feels amazing and sounds amazing. And so, yeah, there's nothing wrong. And obviously, listening to music at home on a recording, on a record, or with your headphones, I mean, that you need that. We all need that. But getting out to a live show, there's nothing better.
Yeah, and it's so hard to do with everything going on right now. It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
depressing to not be able to do that on such a regular basis like we used to without worrying about things. But I will
Yeah.
say that me personally, I don't like listening to live albums. I'm the same way
Okay.
with you. I would rather go to a show and watch them live. Listening to
Yeah.
live albums is one of those things I just don't. It's you still get a feeling that it's different, that
Uh-huh.
you're hearing a different version of the song, but I don't
Sure.
feel like what you said.
Yeah.
You're not standing where you can touch people and say, this
Right.
person's like me, this
Yeah.
person's like me.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
funny you mentioned feeling it, because when I was learning guitar years ago, the guy that I was learning from, both of his parents were hearing impaired, but they took him to Kiss concerts when he was a teenager
Uh-huh.
because they loved to feel the music. Because
Right.
the kick in the drum would come through and they could feel it. They couldn't hear it, but they could feel everything in the music. And that was the one reason they took him to the concerts. And
So
you bringing that up
special.
made me think
Yeah,
about that.
no, that's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. We
Yeah.
had some friends here in the dead community here in town that were also hearing impaired, and they would just stand right up on the stage, like against the
So they
sound
could feel
system.
it.
They would literally just feel it, and it just like that's really that's really cool. That's what we're feeling. We're just not taking it as seriously as like them. That's how they're experiencing the music, and it's amazing.
I love creating a music musing podcast. It lets me see how music affects people in different ways. We're always looking for interesting guests, so if you know someone in the music industry or someone who really has a great music related story, reach out to us at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com. This podcast is produced out of my pocket, so if you want to help with that process, we also have a Patreon at patreon.com/musicmusing. You can join for as little as $1 a month, and we have some cool behind the scenes pictures and stories, and even a sticker. You could even co-host a show idea that you have rolling around in your head. And lastly, please leave us a great review on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on. It helps us reach out to more people who may enjoy these conversations. Thank you for your time, and back to the Music Musing Podcast. Okay, so radio at 18. You mentioned you did something with radio at 18. Let's hear that story, because that had to tie into you being ingrained with music.
Sure. I mean, so I just, I was through high school and kind of going into college and stuff, listening to radio all the time and, just constantly had it on in the car. I was so involved, with the radio station because I was listening so much that I became friendly with the DJ, the
Yeah.
radio host or whatever. And due to that relationship, ended up getting a job working for my first radio station. It was just one day like, hey, Nicole, you're here all the time. We hear from you all the time. You have got
Might
a
as well get paid.
wonderful personality. Like, why don't you come work for us? You can go to shows and and be like I was kind of like the representative on the street. So I would go to shows. I would give out concert tickets.
You were an
I
influencer
introduced
before they were influencers.
what? Yeah, yeah. I introduced the Beach Boys on stage at the fair, at the county
Oh,
fair.
that's
Like, I mean, I
awesome.
got to do some really, really special things, and it was not planned. It was because I loved music and I was so involved with the local radio station that I just was kind of like, here's an open door, like take it. And that's how I ended up working there.
I
I was in
I
radio for
couldn't
4 years because of that.
that's a dream. That would be a dream for me at that age. I couldn't imagine
It
working
was
for a radio
insane.
station.
It was
So
insane.
you got to introduce the Beach Boys, but did you actually get to meet other musicians, like big time
Oh yeah,
musicians? And
all the
oh
time. Yeah,
wow,
all of the meet and greets.
wow,
I was the woman on the street. I was the face of the radio station basically. So anytime we were doing meet and greets with bands or artists and things like that, it was I was the local representation from the radio station. So I mean, I have
wow.
boxes in my closet of t-shirts signed by who knows what band.
Oh
I can't even
no, that's
remember now.
awesome.
It was very, very cool. For a young person going through
Yeah.
college, it was just like, yeah, it was a dream job for sure.
Any one of those interactions with musicians stand out that you can remember?
um I mean, the Beach Boys, but not necessarily on the for a good reason. It was a little inappropriate, but
The underside of music.
yeah, it was like I'm a little young for this conversation at the time, but no, I, I gosh, I don't think so. I remember just overall, I remember just how down to earth a lot of the musicians were and the artists, and just we put them on such a high pedestal, and
Yeah.
everybody is not everybody, but the fan base is so strong, and people get so excited, and that's wonderful. That's what it's all about. We need music in our lives, and but to meet them and just have a one-on-one conversation, a lot of the times you're like, wow, you're just like me. You're another human. You're really down to earth. You're a very cool person. And I think overall that was what was really kind of inspiring, was just really getting to know, like, these are humans. They're wonderful artists, but they're humans like us, which is cool.
That that's encouraging. But it's
Yeah.
so hard. It's so hard to do that because I played in a local band in Florida for a couple of years, and we opened for a couple national acts. And through that, we got to meet them in the green room as well. One of them was a very, very big band for me. I don't know if you've ever heard of 7 Mary 3, but they were a very big band for me, and I grew up listening to them, and they were supporting a new album they were releasing. And when I went back there, I was the starstruck guy. Even though
Yeah.
we'd been playing out for a couple of years, I was the starstruck guy where I walk up to the singer and I'm like nervous and stuff. And he'd had a bad night, so he wasn't really into it. But the guitar player and I just sat and talked for almost an hour.
Right.
And they're not supposed to really do that. They're just supposed to kind of meet and greet and kind of move on. But we
Yeah.
started talking. The conversation got really good, and I can
Right.
just imagine the things that
Yeah.
the conversations you've had with people like
Right.
that.
And
So that
sometimes
Go
it's
ahead.
like you said, it was very just kind of cut and dry,
Yeah,
There was Natasha Bedingfield who blew us off 2 separate times, even though we had contracts with her. That was disheartening because at the time, with my young age, I really loved her music. And so I
yeah.
was really excited to meet her. And 2 separate occasions, it was, oh no, sorry, Natasha bailed. And it was like,
Oh
well, that was a
no.
little disheartening. But when you do get those moments, those one-on-ones, like you said, I mean, there's something special there, and you're like, this
Yeah.
is very cool.
Well, and that had to feed into I mean, you're already proven that you've kind of had a love for music since you were very, very young.
Hmm.
Some of it was kind of put on you, like he did take you at an
Yeah,
age, obviously, where
sure.
you're kind of influential at that point in time.
Totally.
But to take that job and then to kind of get a really almost a personal influence in it, how did that feed what you wanted to do? Like, did that make you want to be in that industry like all the time, or did it make you not want to be in that industry?
Yeah, so I ended up getting out of radio because I got into it for the love of the music and
Yeah,
bringing the music and the community together, right? So I thought that was just such a beautiful opportunity. The deeper you get into the music industry or into the radio industry, the more you see, the dark side.
yeah,
And it was very disheartening. And so that's actually why I got out of the industry, was because it's not all fun and games. It's not all going to shows and meeting cool artists. There's money involved, and there's, I it it w- in the end, it was just like, it's probably better to not, spoil my love of music and
yeah,
the industry, right? So it's like, let's get
yeah.
out while you can before you're disheartened completely. So really, it encouraged me more to get out of it so that I could enjoy it on a real elemental level and not have to know the deep dark backside of things.
And there's so many things in the world that are like that.
Yep.
I actually have played on worship teams at churches. Same story. Once you start
Hmm.
getting behind the curtains and seeing what really goes on behind there, it
Uh-huh.
almost ruins you that. And I've
Yeah,
moved on because of those types of things that have happened, and I
sure.
can see that. And but you still stayed with music. You still stuck with music, and you still care about music. Um,
Definitely.
you still go to Dead concerts.
Uh-huh.
You still go to other concerts, but are there any ones in particular that you have kind of done the same thing, went to a different city to see because you really wanted to see them? Have you do you like seek out a certain band other than the Grateful Dead?
I don't,
Okay.
honestly. I really don't. I'm in a relationship now going on almost 5 years, and
Uh-huh.
he was not, big into the Grateful Dead scene, of course, when
Yeah.
we first met. Like most of my boyfriends in the past, it's like I'm a 30.
They learn after a while though,
But
right?
they learn or they don't, and they get kicked to the curb, right? So it's, you got to make up your mind now or get out, right?
Grateful Dead, me or
Or the
not.
door.
Or the door. That's funny.
But he knew of the Dead, and he's, very quickly jumped on board, and he knows, sometimes we'll be listening to the Dead, or, and he'll be quicker at picking up what song is coming up next just after a couple chords or something, and so he's caught on really quickly. And he enjoys it very much, at least so he puts on, which is great. We have a great time going to shows together. uh, but he also has his, music that he really loves and appreciates. And so when we go to other shows, that's really kind of it's usually for him.
Yeah.
For me, it's 99% of the time going to be based around the Grateful Dead, but we'll go to other shows that he wants to go see, and I enjoy it. And I'm glad that I'm brought outside of my comfort zone. And, and music is music. I love music in general. There's not a certain genre I like more than others. I just happen to be biased to the Grateful Dead.
So it's good. This is going to be a hard question, and normally it's an easy one. I've found that the people I've asked this question to, you have an easy time with this one. But I feel with as many Dead shows as you've been to, it's probably going to be hard to put this. But is there a life moment that you relate to a song? Like, homecoming or graduation or first kiss or getting married. Is there some type of life moment that you can tie to a song that every time that song comes on, that feeling and that time comes back to you?
Yeah. So there's it. So it's basically just a song that reminds me of my dad and my
Okay.
upbringing. It reminds me of my childhood and growing up with the Dead. And it's called Little Girl Lost.
Okay.
It was written by Brent Midland, who was their keyboardist at the
Okay.
time. And my dad, when I was younger, he used to always, and I have sisters too, so it's not just me. I'm not, but he and I
Yeah.
have this Dead connection. They have other connections. But Little Girl Lost is a song that if I hear that, if it pops up on Pandora, or it's very, very rarely played live anymore.
Okay. Okay.
But if that song comes up, I mean, tears will come to my eyes, and
Really?
it's super emotional. Yeah. It's a super special song.
So when I preface that by saying that most people can get one, I kind of expected it to be a Dead song, which obviously you've got
Yeah.
that in your history.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to come that fast, really. I usually, but I think the what I'm noticing with that is that people that music is an important thing in their lives, whether they play it or whether they've lived in it all their life, almost can come up with that, automatically. And I probably shouldn't have been shocked to hear yours come out that quick, but
I have the lyrics tattooed on my rib cage,
oh,
so
well, then
it's
you definitely care about that song quite a bit.
it's a pretty serious song for me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great though. I mean, when you look at what people's lives who listen to music and care about music a lot, what their lives, go through, it's hard to not find that moment.
Mhm.
And I've spoken with friends who really aren't music listeners, and they still may have a song that ties to it, but they can't just go to it right away like that. They can't just say,
Mhm.
"Yep, yep, I know that feeling. I put that song on. It's going to
Sure.
be." For
Right.
me, it's I remember you by Skid Row. That I can just think of that memory, and even talking about the song, like saying it, it's like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
there. I'm sitting
Yeah.
right there looking at that.
Oh,
Um,
that's special.
so you got to see Garcia. You were a
Yeah.
little young.
Very young.
Do you? I mean, maybe the closest point you were at the stage. Do you remember seeing him play and being, wow, this is something amazing? Or was it
I
just,
can't
he's one of the guys on stage?
I can't really say that I do necessarily. I remember him and his face, and I could distinguish like his voice. Like if somebody across the street was playing and his music or
Yeah.
something, even if it wasn't a song I was super familiar with, like just the voice in general. Um, it's one of those things that when I was a kid, I called Jerry Uncle Jerry. Just like we had a little doll that was a little Jerry Garcia doll. My dad had a
That's
wig and would
hilarious.
like dress up as Uncle Jerry. And so for me growing up, Jerry Garcia was, even though I'd never met him, he was essentially family. It was Uncle Jerry in our house.
That's
It was, Papa, are you
crazy.
playing Uncle Jerry right now? Or
Oh,
Papa, put
wow.
Uncle Jerry on. That's what Jerry was. And so I don't remember, I don't necessarily think I have specific memories of him playing on stage. I do remember being young and seeing like the big, what do you call it? The screens on the side of the stage. And
Yeah.
for Grateful Dead, that's all these like space, like,
Yeah.
like, right. All this stuff that's kind of shooting out. And swirling and all this crazy psychedelic things. And as a little kid, it was just like, it was mesmerizing. I remember as a kid from shows very, very vividly, thinking how cool that was. But yeah, Jerry himself, not
I
specific.
think that's almost better of a memory than actually remembering it being on stage, to be honest
Right,
with you. That's
right.
so cool. That I grew up listening to what my parents listened to a lot, but I didn't get to go to concerts and stuff like that. Very once in a
Sure.
while, I think maybe twice in my childhood, I got to go see. We saw Paul Revere and the Raiders, which is totally obscure band, but
Uh-huh.
I got to see them, but I don't remember anything about that. But
Sure.
the fact that you've kind of made him a part, or that your dad made him a part of your life, is almost
Yeah.
better than
It was
actually remembering seeing
family.
that. So crazy.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, it
so
was straight up family.
so convince me that I should like the Dead. And I'm not saying I don't. I do, but when you're talking about the Grateful Dead to someone, and it's a part of your life, and it's been a part of your life after the stories that we've talked about so far, how do you convince somebody like your boyfriend now
Mhm.
to go do that? I mean, what do you say? What's the allure of getting into it?
So there's really not much you can say or that you do say.
Okay.
It's more about the doing. For me,
Okay.
it's take my hand, come with me, let's go and experience this together.
Give it
It's
a try.
let's go to a show and go
Uh-huh.
with an open mind, and and free spirit, meet some people, be prepared for lots of hugs and cheek kisses and swirling through the dance floor and all of those good things. I don't think there is like a word or a sentence that I could say, or that I know how to say. It's really all about the experience that really gets you on the bus with the Dead. Um, Obviously the music is a huge part of it. That's what's bringing
Yeah.
everyone together, but the community is like the glue. Um, so it's more of a doing thing. Take my hand, let's go. Jump in the car. We're doing this.
And it's just
Can
jump
turn
it, dive
that
in. I
frown
mean,
upside
deep
down.
end and see what's there, right?
That's it.
Okay.
And you either like it or you don't, and fair enough. Like, to each their own. You don't have to We don't have to be friends, because or no, no, I'm just saying, like, it's
You
like,
don't like the Dead,
if
we can't be friends.
no, we may not be able to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but we could still be friends. We don't have
Well,
to just be friends because you like the Dead or not. You know what I mean? Like, we could be friends otherwise.
and I think that's kind of almost universal, or should be universal, of talking about concerts and going to concerts. When you go to concerts like that, the Dead or any of the concerts,
Mhm.
you're there with the same like mind people for the most part. But you
Right.
could be there with somebody who's trying it out. But
Sure.
that attitude is what should be carrying through. And I've
Yeah.
noticed that a lot with people that go to concerts on a regular basis and love music and that care about music.
Hmm.
And sometimes you hate the other people that don't like or that like the music that you don't like, but you
Sure.
don't hate them. It's just
Right.
a dislike for that music. And it
Right.
seems like everything is so much nicer when people just say, hey, come hang out, come do this,
Just
just
have an
listen
open
in.
mind.
Yeah, have an
Just
open
just
mind.
just give
And we
it a
just don't have
try.
enough of that anymore.
That's
S-
just overall, yes.
so I'll tie us up with a couple quick hit questions. I try and do like one or two quick hit questions at the end. Um, but I do want to discuss your dad first. So
Okay.
obviously he took you when you're young. You're going with him now. Um, if he hadn't introduced you to the Dead, and I know this is kind of like the what if kind of things.
Sure.
You seeing him go, would that be enough for you to be drug into to going and seeing what he gets out of it?
Um, oh gosh. I
Let me
mean,
let me rephrase the question. Let me rephrase
sure.
the question. Do you see a different person in him when he goes?
Oh my gosh. Is he a different human being while we're at
Yeah.
shows? A
Yeah.
100,000% yes.
Really? That's so cool.
Absolutely.
That's so cool.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I mean, it's yeah, we are on cloud nine, you know, he's on cloud nine. He, even if he's just sitting there silently in the back, just tapping his foot or whatever, you know, most of the time he's like in the mix and he's dancing and swirling around the dance floor. It's
That's
amazing.
so cool.
But but yeah, I mean, you know, he'll take little breaks and you just like kind of catch an eye and he's just sitting there tapping his foot, you know, maybe a sip of his beverage or something. And but yeah, he's definitely he's in a different environment mentally and physically, and you know, he's a different person. And like I said, I have other siblings, and he and I connect over the Grateful Dead. That's our space together. That's our space
Yeah.
where we, you know, get to be ourselves and be free, and you know, we have common friends, and you know, that's our environment. But my other siblings, you know, I have one going to school to be a physician's assistant, and she, you know, she'll go to shows every now and again, but it's may not be her jam per se. You know what I mean? So dad and her connect on a different
Different
level, and a
levels.
different mindset, really. And
That's
that's
so
fine.
cool.
You know, that's great for them.
Okay, quick hit questions. Other bands have kind of had that same idea of getting people following them. I'm Fish,
Yeah.
Pearl Jam, kind of
Mhm.
those type of bands have started that whole idea.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would go to because of the atmosphere, whether you like the music or not? Or is it something that Dead fans kind of look down upon?
I think that there's both. I
Okay.
personally, I have not been to a Fish show, but I have a lot of
Okay.
friends who are into the Fish scene,
Yeah.
and we have a local band here in town that plays Grateful Dead and Fish kind of
Okay.
simultaneously, even in the same night, and I enjoy
Yeah.
it. I think that the music is great. But if I'm gonna save up my money all year to go to 2, 3 shows, I'm going to the Grateful Dead related shows. I'm not gonna
Gotcha.
go to the Fish shows personally.
Okay.
Um, but that's just me. You
Okay.
know, there's a lot. I think that there's a lot of people in the Grateful Dead community that do both.
Okay. Uh, this is going to be a hard one. This is a difficult one.
Okay.
One album by the Dead that you could listen to on a regular basis, like nonstop.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. I know. It's it. Well, I guess is there an album out there that kind of has a couple songs that you feel akin to? Like you talked about the Little Girl Lost. Is
hmm
there something out there like that album maybe has enough on it that it draws you to all the time?
oh my gosh.
I know.
I uh, um I, I don't know. I
They're your
it's a
babies. You can't like the one better than the other, right?
it's like impossible.
I know.
That's an impossible question. So I've
Okay.
been recently purchasing the records that are like they're the
Yeah.
vinyls of the live shows
Yeah.
from like the early 90s or even some of the 70s shows, and that's what
Okay.
I've been really enjoying
Really?
because they're old shows. You're getting a different heart and soul into it.
Yeah.
And I know you said you're not into necessarily the hearing the live music on vinyl or recorded, but I think that it's fun because it's different. It's different every time. It's unique, and you get a little bit of everything, and it keeps you on your
Okay.
toes.
Last one. Um, Not necessarily the Dead, but any concert you've been to. Is there one instrument that you are drawn to on a regular basis?
An instrument.
Like guitar, bass, keyboards, drums, singing, the vocals. Is there one that you kind of seek out or connect with the most?
Ooh,
And again, no is a good answer. If you like the whole thing, that's a good answer too.
right. I do. I really get pulled to like that bluesy, jazzy. So sometimes like a saxophone really speaks to
Really?
me. Um, yeah, I really kind of like that. Like, I don't know, just I don't know. It's super fun. But I mean, yeah, guitars. It can be all over the place. So you know, guitars kind of I'm not a musician, so I don't. I'm not,
Well,
it up
yeah,
either.
no,
It's
it's
trash,
so
but
for
I do
me,
like that kind of like bluesy, that grungy, like raspiness.
yeah. So when my brother and I went back and forth with it, I played guitar, so I immediately get attracted to the guitar.
Sure.
My brother sings a little, but he gets attracted to the drums a lot, and I'm like,
Mm,
that's kind of odd, but he likes the beat. And I was just curious if I think it's a little bit different though. Again, when you're talking about listening to something on the headphones, and when you're talking
yeah.
about going to a live show, because the live
Sure.
shows are so mixed out really well that you're feeling everything.
Yeah.
When you're listening to the headphones, you can really pick out those
Yeah.
nuances, that just the guitar playing or just the bass playing. When you're talking about a
100%.
concert, you're in the
Yeah.
moment, you're seeing everything. So I get
Yeah.
that. I totally get it. I was just kind of curious. I just try and throw 3 questions at the end to see if I can get a quick hit.
Those are some tough ones.
So I'm going to tie this up, but I want you to talk really quick about something we started before we actually signed in. You and your dad are actually going to be on. I'll let you take it from here.
So yeah, so there's actually a local music festival here in town that is solely based on the Grateful Dead. So it's all
Okay.
Grateful Dead cover bands for 3 days. From the moment you wake up till you go to sleep at 11 o'clock at night. So you're listening to Grateful Dead from different bands all day. And
Cool.
the last one that we went to right before the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
this guy was recording, and my dad, of course, just like he is, oh, what are you doing? What's going on? Poking and prodding, making friends. And so he's doing a documentary based on how the Grateful Dead has evolved over the years with the jam band scene and the cover band scene, and how the younger generation is taking to the Grateful Dead. So we started talking to him and told him our story, my dad and I, and how, our like budding relationship of father daughter over the years, and how we go to
That's
shows
awesome.
together. And so we're going to be one of the features in this documentary based on, it makes a lot of sense. It's a generational documentary, how the Grateful Dead
Yeah.
started and where it is today, and how it's going and how it's changing. And so going from father to daughter to whatever the next generation is, so we're going to be featured in this, and it should be coming out within the next year. I'm assuming it's been a long time coming, but
I thank you for putting that up, because when I get the link, I will put it out on our site
yeah,
and link it to it, and so we can do that.
it's
Again, I
going to
will
be
be
called,
talking to your father. Say again.
I think it's going to be called The Music Never Stopped. From last I heard, that was the working title. Music Never Stopped.
Again, I'll keep in touch with you guys and get
Perfect.
the link and put it out on the site when we get to it.
Thank you.
I will be interviewing your father in a couple days. It will show up an episode later. But I want to thank you, Nicole, for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on and just talking about how music has kind of influenced your life. This is what these conversations are for. I like to hear what people, how that's, come into your life and how it's changed how you feel. So thank you
Well,
very much for being on. I appreciate
thank
it.
you. This was super
Uh-huh.
fun, and I'm really excited that you're sharing people's stories. This is
Yeah.
really cool. Thank you.
Thank you for choosing Music Musing. We hope this story not only gave you a little insight to what music means to someone, but it may also change how music fits into your life. So be sure and drop us a line at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com and let us know your music story.